Hi everyone, and welcome to lesson 4 of the floristry school. And because I thought we should be a little bit professional about this, I've even got notes. Now I need you to know that today is my 48th anniversary as a professional florist, and I really hope that you enjoy what we're going to do. Now in lesson 3 we investigated all aspects of wire, well not all aspects, but a large proportion of different types of wiring techniques. So today what we're going to do is we're going to utilize those techniques that we previously covered, and we're going to take that onto buttonhole body flowers actually, which buttonholes, corsages and garlands. We'll look at wristlets and things like that in due course. So just go back and have a wee look at the wiring techniques that we did, plus the mossing and the parafilming, just to brush up on the skills that we've already covered. Now, you might be thinking, why are we doing buttonholes and corsages and headgears? Aren't they out of fashion? Once you learn how to do this, this will take you into the other methods that we would use if we were doing a wired bouquet or any other kind of professional floristry. Now, I'm not going to say that mine is the right way. This is just how I learned, and I think I did 10,000 working hours to get my diploma of floristry. Now, before we begin today, let's just look at the flowers that are available, and I want you to start asking, when a bride comes to you or whatever season you're in, I want you to actually think about the season, the availability of flowers, and what the bride wants. Now here's a bouquet that I just quickly whipped up yesterday, just as a let's look at the flowers that are available in this season, and I'm sort of like late summer, early autumn. So these are the flowers that are available. This is what the bride wants, and let me just tell you why sometimes to have the art of wiring is such a good idea. Now look what's happened here. See, this here is broken off, and this one here is broken off. That's why wiring is so important. Now, the other thing I want you to think about when you are going through your wedding consultation, is the wedding formal? Is it informal? Is it casual? Is it traditional? What are the men wearing, especially with what we're going to be doing in a moment? That's the buttonholes or boutonnieres. Are they wearing a tuxedo? Are they wearing a morning suit? Are they wearing an open neck shirt? Is it a t-shirt? So these will all make up a picture of what's going to be appropriate and what's going to be inappropriate. Now the other thing that I need you to sort of think about is, what are the main flowers in the bouquet? So looking at the flowers that have been selected by the bride, looking at the main flowers, what flowers here could you pick out to use as the buttonhole or the boutonniere or the corsages? I'll get to that in a moment. Now the other thing I need you to ask your client and to think about is the venue. Is it a barn? Is it a church? Is it a hotel? Is it a house? Or is it a garden? That will all help to make a picture. Now the other thing to consider is, what time of the day? Is it morning, noon or night? What's the season that they're going to be married in? And will the flowers need to be wired or will they need to be mossed? How are you going to care for those flowers? And if it's going to be like a man gets, well, when you're wearing flowers, the body heat, the heat onto the flower, is it going to last the duration of the event? Now, the other thing is, what say the bride's selecting a gardenia, stephanotis, sweet peas, hyacinths, daffodils, moth orchids, how will they last? And that technique, just to keep those in the back of your mind. The other thing is, I always make a point of asking if anybody wearing the flowers has a sensitivity. Like gardenias have a strong smell, sweet peas have a strong smell, and if somebody has allergies, just bear that in mind before you start your construction. Right, we're nearly finished with the formal bits and then we can get on to it. Now the other thing that's really important is, what size is the person that's going to be wearing the flowers, especially if it's a corsage for body flowers. Is the corsage going to be for grandma who is 90 and very frail? What type of fabric is the corsage going to be worn on? If it's going to be, would you be best to use 5 gardenias, or would you be best to use something really lightweight? Because say 5 roses into a buttonhole onto silk, that is going to drag down on the fabric. So just, that's another thing to bear in mind. Now if it's a garland, is it going to be worn by a 2-year-old or a 22-year-old? For a 2-year-old, you would use very light, it would be very loose and informal, whereas somebody who's 22, you could perhaps put even more flowers into it. But the least amount of bulk that you can get out of the stems and the flowers, thus the reason why we do the wiring. Right, well that's just about, the other thing is getting your seasons right, and if you can't get the flowers, could you get away with silk or artificial? So they're just a few of the things to consider, but all the notes will be up on the website and you can just go into them. Right, now we get to the best part. Looking at this bouquet here, and I've got some Lisianthus, I've got some Lisianthus, I've got some Alstroemeria, I've got some lovely little daisy chrysanthemums, and then I've got some cymbidium or some oncidium orchids down there. I've got ruscus, and I've got a little bit of pelargonium there. So when I look at that, it's like, oh, and also there's some Freesia. So I look at that and I think, oh, there's a whole variety of flowers. What will I use? Let's look at making, and everything that we're going to do today is really, really simple. It's no use getting way advanced on ourselves. Let's keep it simple, and then we can build on it each week as we get into it. Right, I've also got some asparagus fern here. I've got some ruscus, some ivy leaves. Also, as I said, I've got some pelargonia leaves there. Now, I like to use those, especially here in Auckland, New Zealand. We have an issue with mosquitoes. I know. This stuff is fantastic because it's got quite a nice smell. It makes sure that the bride likes that smell, or whoever's wearing the flowers likes that smell, because some people don't quite like that, but that is great at repelling mosquitoes and these midgy little things that float around. Okay, let's just look at right ways and wrong ways. I'll get an orchid off here. And when I look into that, or look at that flower, I think to myself, now how am I going to wire that? Easy peasy. Now I always go into there. You can either go into there or take your hand up there like so and give that just a little bit of a cutaway. Also, as I said, the least amount of stem, the better it's going to be. We're going to wire it. The reason we're going to wire it is because we're going to be able to manipulate the flower to have it to the way that we want it to be. And also, we don't want any of this little breakages here, which, although doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, a bride's not going to be looking at that and thinking, oh, that's not very good. And in photographs, is that going to look good? And is anything else going to fall out of the bouquet? So wiring is a good thing. Now when it comes, I've already talked about the wires. For what I'm going to do today, I'm going to use a 28, either a 28 or a 26 gauge wire. Very fine wire, but because this is going to be worn on the body, I don't want it to be too heavy. Right, to wire this, it's just a matter of pushing the wire right through the calyx there and then bringing that little bit of wire down like so. Now, I know, because I've had years and years of experience, that some flowers give off either like a sticky substance, which is what happens with the oncidium or an orchid. Sometimes they give out a gum. Well, that gum means that when you go to do your taping, it's not going to stick onto it very well. Right, so as I said, the least amount of stem, the better. Turn that around like that and give that a wee squeeze. And then if there's still a bit of moisture there, just get your fingers into I use a handy towel and just wipe that off. Right, give that a pull out before you start, and then that goes onto there like that. And remember that you pull and twist to keep that in place. And all we're really doing is just trying to make that little area in there as secure as we can, and to get it to stick onto there and to hold. If it's not holding, take it off and start it again. Right, for a little simple buttonhole, one flower only, let's look at an ivy leaf. The way that I'm going to wire this leaf is from the right side, going through that main vein of the leaf and bringing that down like so, getting rid of that there. And if you need to, just give that a little twist around there. The reason I've done that is because I'm only going to have one little bit of wire exposed on this side, but the bulk of the wire on this side, and that's going to mean that I can manipulate. Now let's look at using a little bit of fern with that. Fern always looks nice with orchids. Get rid of as much of the stem. you need a good centimetre or couple of centimetres with no foliage on it, because when you bind that, that's just going to add a bit of bulk onto it. Now the next thing you can do is you can actually cheat the whole process by just putting that stem on top of the leaf and then putting the orchid on top of there like that. Now when I look at that, I can automatically see that that is far, far too long for the balance from there to there. You don't need all of that. So because I didn't waste my time wiring, I can just go straight into there, get rid of that, put that back down onto there, then put that onto there, and that is a much better length proportionally towards the flower. Right, holding that in one hand, cutting those. If you wanted to, you can twist it, but I don't like to twist. I think that twisting just adds bulk at the end of the day, and we want the least amount of bulk as we can. Right, just getting that around there, twisting that around all the way down to the bottom. And as a general rule of thumb, I like the stem to be quite long, perhaps not as long as that, maybe just that long is all you need. So that's and if you're a bit stuck, it's just the stem length would be the length of the flower, just so that you've got that into perspective. Right, that's one way of doing it. Now, let me just show you what happens if you don't get rid of your weight. Now, this one here, I've just used the pelargonium leaf, which is it's quite pretty, simple, informal, not too much to it. You know, sometimes guys don't want to be wearing a whole garden on their lapel or on their jacket. Now, the other thing that I've done here is, can you see into there, the really thick portion of that leaf of the stem there, as opposed to that one there. That to me looks really thick and cumbersome and bulky. I prefer that very, very thin stem there, and I think it looks more elegant. So that's one way of doing it. The other way that I've done it is, as I've done with this one here, and I've put another bit of fern in. The reason I've put that fern into there is I know that that asparagus fern will last. I just know that it will, and that's because I've had years of experience. If you are unsure, what I suggest you do is just cut it, wire it, tape it, and then leave it overnight. And if it's still sitting up nice and firm, you know that you're okay to go. Also, I'm not happy with the stem, the length of the stem, as indicated in the second one here, bit thick and a bit bulky. Now with this one here, I've used the two ferns, and what I did was I didn't wire the leaf. Now as a result of not wiring that leaf, there is no support on that leaf. Somebody putting that leaf can go any which way it wants to go, whereas opposed to this one here, I know that is not going to move from up there, and after all, the leaf is just to give a little bit more support to your buttonhole. So there's some good ways and some wrong ways, and the more you do it, the better your technique is going to be. Now, before we go any further and have a wee break for a minute, when you have made your buttonholes up, and they're usually the last thing that I do, what I like to do is to get a box or a tray. I like to put a piece of cellophane on top of that. Then I get handy towels like so, put a handy towel on top of that, give that a really good spray. This is the best way to do it, especially if you're in a hot environment. Right, from there, just get your buttonholes, and then I just like to lay those on top of that damp cloth like so. Give those another spray, and don't forget that flowers will take up their moisture not only via their stem but also via their little petals. Now some flowers you can do this with, some you can't, but I'll cover that as we go through the classes in due course. And then over the top of that, put another piece of wet tissue or wet handy towel, and then just use, whoops, I didn't use it, get a long enough piece, just bring that over there like that, and that bit over there, and that will just make sure that everything stays nice and fresh while you go through your other work. Just a wee tip from me. Right, let's just have a wee break for a minute, and then I'm going to show you how to make a corsage, a buttonhole using the Lisianthus, because they are a different kettle of fish to work with as well. See you in a minute. Right, let's get into a Lisianthus buttonhole. And let me just remind you, why do we wire? Because we do not want that to happen. And I've got two Lisianthus buds here, and I've got a slightly bigger floret. These, as I said, need to be wired. So take that stem there off, and look how thick that is. Look how thick that is. Now, using the same 26 or 28 gauge wire, take that through there, bring that down. If you need to twist, twist, but it really doesn't need to be twisted because you've got the double prong. You've got a prong here and a prong there. You don't need to take that prong, that little prong, all the way down to there, because that's going to add bulk, whereas it only needs the two prongs up there to hold that little head together. Right, let's do the same with another one. Take that off there, take that through the calyx right up the top there, bring that down like so, and then with the main floret, get rid of that and do exactly the same thing, but you can take it up just a little bit higher this time. And because that's going to be just a little bit heavier than the buds, take that down a little bit longer so that you have got the support. And remember, you'll know that you've got the support when you can hold it and it doesn't fall. So look, not strong enough, but I wouldn't use a heavier wire on that either, because, and the best way for me to explain this to you is, those little petals are almost like a butterfly's petal. They're really, really fine. So be careful about what you're doing. Right, put those down into there. Now this time I thought I would use a pelargonium leaf. Get rid of that there. In fact, I'm going to leave all of these bits just so that we can have a look at how much weight we've actually got rid of it. Right, with the pelargonium leaf, using the same gauge wire again, but this time I'm going to take that wire down through the main vein, and then I'm going to bring that around like that, and then I'll just give that a little twist like that. Now the reason I've done that is because there's not enough distance in there to thread the wire around. Well, there is, but I needed it to be up there because I know that that's going to be a stronger point. So if you're in doubt, just have a couple of wee play rounds to make sure that you get it right. Now let's put a little bit of asparagus fern with that. Now to wire the asparagus fern, it's just a matter of taking your wire up to that first little bit that's coming off the stem, take that down there like that, and then just give that a little twist. Now sometimes, as I did in the first one that I did, sometimes you can get away without wiring them. Let's just check to make sure that that's the right weight. Yes, it is, because it's not falling over. Okay, and look how much I got rid of. I got rid of all of that to just those little stems there. We'll have a look at it we'll check that out in a few minutes. Right, now to tape and wire, getting your little buds like so, pulling it out, and then just taking that down the stem like so, and do the same with the next one. And I just know that you'll be doing lots and lots of practice so that your wiring skills are becoming quite quick and fast. Now when you come to doing these, just be very careful that you don't pull it too tightly. And the other thing is to remember that even though this is quite weightless at this stage, when you feel the whole roll, there's quite a bit on it, so the least amount of tape you can use, the best anyway. Okay, now with these here, I'm just going to put just a little bit of wire, just a little bit. Now this is also a bit of paraffin or tape around there. That's just to make sure that that little cut stem has been sealed, just to retain the moisture. The other great thing about these pelargonium leaves is because they are a little ruffly, if they're going to ruffle anywhere, they're going to ruffle around the flower. Just a wee tip from me, and I'm not even going to bother wiring that at this stage. Okay, to put it all together, one down, lay one down, and then you need to think like a step. You wouldn't, how unattractive is that? But when you do that, look how that's much, much more attractive with that step down. So just think of walking down steps so that you've got this layering, but we'll get into layering and pillowing in due course. Okay, that goes on to there. Let's bring that to there. If that needs to go up a bit, you can just do that at that stage. Now, the other thing that I need to tell you is do all your wiring and all of your taping before you start construction, and once it goes into your hand, don't let it go. Right, I'm going to put that fern behind there like so, and then that is going to be my backing flower that's going to go behind that like so. Give that a little squish together like that, and then getting your tape, just take your tape all the way down to there, and then cut that off. If you wanted to, you can take the wire back, the tape back up the top there. Now, the other thing that you can do is, if you're a little bit unsure, is you can actually use a little bit of tape, and you could perhaps put the tape at the back there if you wanted to, just to cover off that little bit there. But because everything has been taped, I think that that'll be fine. Now the other thing is, because I've wired that, if I'm not happy with where I've put it, I can just move that around. So looking at that, nice and neat, no twisting, nice thin stem down there, and we got rid of all of that bulk. Now the reason I want to show you that is because with this one here, I've left everything. I haven't taped, wired any of the little buds there, and I haven't removed nearly enough of the stem. And look how thick and clumpy that looks compared to that one there. Now, and I just know that putting that onto or into a buttonhole, because those little buttonholes on suits, they're only about a centimetre, if that, or less than half an inch. So trying to get that down and in is a little bit hard and bulky. So there you have, this I prefer as opposed to that. You could put more onto that if you wanted to, but hey, look, you don't want, I don't think blokes, as I said, want to have a whole garden. So there we have two. Before I forget, now, because I've wired that, I know that that's not going to break off. I didn't wire that, and look at that, just like that, that fell off. So I wouldn't like to be producing work where flowers were breaking or falling off. So thus, getting back to what I've said, the reason why we wire is because we then have the support, and boys can be rough. So there you have it. Not so good, much better. Give me a wee moment, and then we're going to look at doing something with daisies, because they, or the chrysanthemums, because they are a completely different kettle of fish as well. I will be back in a moment. Right, daisies or chrysanthemums. These are interesting little flowers to work with. So I just need a bud, and I need one that's slightly bigger. So that's going to be going, I'll put them on there. One's going to go there, one's going to step down. So what I've done now is I've got a small, then I'm going to one just slightly bigger, and that's that transition of growth or transition in design where you go from the very smallest to the next size to the biggest. But that can wait for another day. Let's not be confused. Okay, and then let's get another bud. So they're going to go down like so. So we'll have the small, the medium, and then the large is going to go there. Now you could just have one chrysanthemum or daisy on its own, but I've got this wee rule: one on its own's lonely, two's interesting, but three is visually more exciting to the eye. So I'm going to put three into there. You could put two, but see what I mean? Not really what I'm looking for. I like the three together, but that was just how I was taught, and that's what I visually like. Okay, so we've got those there, and I think that this time I might just use the ruscus leaves, because I've got the ruscus leaves in there. Now when you look at those leaves, there's no stem. Well, don't panic, because we can fix that. So there's the three ruscus leaves, and you know that the back always has like a little wee barnacle-y thing on the back of it. Just pick that off, and that will be your indicator that it is to go to the back. Right, let's just wire the leaves using that same wire again. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that through there like that, and I'm going to bring that down, so it's all going to go to the front, and just give that a little twist like that. One, I'll show you again. That's the back. I know that that's the back because I picked the bit off it, and I know that that is the tip because it's got that little pointed bit there, and I know that that's the base, and I can see the main line running through there. So that is the front, and I'm just going to do the same again, take that down there, and you'll see now why I'm using such a fine wire. So that's the 28. It goes to the next number down or up, which is the finest, is a 30. Right, there's my back, and I'm just going to bring that into there. So there's 3. I've shown you 3 times how to do that, and you can't be twisting that too hard. Right, the next thing is with I've got this really long stem here. I do like the little bit of leaf on there, but I know that that leaf will wilt, and that leaf will also turn into a really mushy, horrible thing in due course. Yep, it is, but I do love that smell. Okay, I know that that head will break, so this is another technique. Take those off there. Now, somebody mentioned the other day, why don't I use a knife? I learnt to use scissors, and I like scissors as opposed to a knife, but that's entirely up to you as to what you want to do. Now, I'll show you on the big one, on this one here. What you can do is you could, if you wanted to, wire it through there. I don't like that because it's still not safe. See how that just snapped off there? The other thing, and let me show you what this here is, sometimes if you disturb the petals, they all just come away, especially if it's ready to blow. So doing it this way isn't actually, and you've got to go right up into there to get some stability. Well, when you do that, you might just upset all those little weak, because they're only just held on, even though I'm pulling those, these are fresh, but if one goes, then they all go. So I don't actually prefer to use that technique. What I like to do is this technique, getting your flower, hold on, we'll go this way. I've got to put my glasses on now because this is really fine. This is like microsurgery on a flower. Getting your wire and sticking that wire up the stem and pushing it right through the center of the flower. Take that right through there. Do a tiny little wee hook, the tiniest hook at the top, and then just bring that right through and into there. And you can't see it, but I can. That little wire is hidden in there, and now I have a nice wired daisy that I know, or chrysanthemum that I know is not going to shatter. Now I'll just repeat that on another one here. You can go from the top down, but I actually prefer to go from the base up. Tiny little wee wire in there again, turn that over and then pull that back into itself, almost until it almost is coming out the side there, but we don't want to see the wire in the side either, but we are going to be wiring that. Now with this one here, get rid of that bulk there and then do exactly the same, turning it over, sticking that up there like that, turning that over. Now this here's far too much for turnover, and I know it's going to be, and oh no, I got away with it. Phew, I like it when I get away with it. Right, putting that there, let's just tape everything. Oh, I always like to know that, I'd rather be safe than sorry when it comes to some of these things. Now, you don't always have to wire the leaves, as I've already indicated, but it does help if you do. And then let's just do another one. Again, put those to one side, do it all before you start. Now with these here, pull that out, bring that down like so. And you have to be quite careful when you're doing that, because you don't want to pull that wire that you've actually taken through the flower coming off. And then with this one here, do the same again. And let's just look at how much weight we actually got rid of. So there's 3 bits of bulky weight that we've got rid of, and I know that this is going to be safe, strong and sturdy. Okay, to put the whole thing together, one exactly the same as what we did with the Lisianthus, one to there, one to there. Let's bring that onto there like that. And the other thing is, I can now very gently, I can manipulate that to have it the way that I want. Look, nice straight stems. And then for added support, let's put a leaf up there like that. And then we can have 1, 2 there, like so. Squeezing that together, and then let's bring another one down and into there like so, and that I can bend and manipulate those the way that I want to, get rid of those the excess stems there, and then wire that down like, or tape it down like so. So that's that example. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you is, when I look at that, I've got lovely transition from there to there and down into there. But when I look at that, and I've got one there and one there, that I don't really like visually. I actually prefer what I've done here, which is I've just taken a little piece of ruscus, wired the whole thing, and I'll just show you what I mean. And that's just a matter of getting your leaf like so, and then that could just be wired through there, going up to the second leaf, wire that, and then getting rid of that because I can't stand it. It's wrong. And look how much better that looks with all of those leaves as opposed to the 1, 2, 3. Visually, that looks much, much better to me. That looks like, and don't forget the daisy or the chrysanthemum is quite an informal type of flower. So to me, with the little bits of movement over there, looks far, far superior to what we had. And then it's just a matter of wiring or taping those all together like so. So there you have it. We've done, and we'll look at these all at the end. So you've done the orchid, we've done the Lisianthus, and we've done these here, the chrysanthemums. Now leave me for a moment, it's quite a lot today, and I want to show you what to do with freesias, because they are a completely different kettle of fish as well. Right, freesias. Haven't we covered a lot of ground today? Okay, here we have a freesia. That needs to be discarded because that started to wilt. That needs to be discarded because that started to wilt. That needs to be discarded because that's starting to wilt as well. Or actually it's just wilting because it's old. Because what happens is with something like this is it goes from, they start flowering from the base up. If you have anything that's looking like that at this stage, discard and get rid of it. Now look how long that stem is, and we are going to have to wire because I just know that will, see that there, see, bent, get rid of that. So I'm going to cut it up into there. So when you're thinking now, where will I know to cut it? You know that you only need less than 1 centimetre of stem to fix the wire. So cut that off on the slant there. Let's just see how much weight we save. Right, here's another one. Now that there, I may just get away with. This one here I'm going to use because I want to show you how to wire those singly. So I'm going to have, that is going to be my main flower. As I said, remember, one on its own is interesting, but no, one on its own is lonely, 2 is interesting, but 3 is visually more exciting. So we're going to have the one freesia. Now also it's got the long stem here, the long floret there with the lovely little, the transition from the main flower out towards those little buds. And you'll see, as I was talking before about that transition and how it sort of starts from the smallest and works its way into the biggest, and nature's done it quite beautifully for us here with that lovely step. And so you've got one there, one to the left, one to the right, one to the left, one to the right. See how it just all graduates back down into the main body of the flowers. Right, if you wanted to use this, you need to know how to wire it this way. So get rid of that there. We don't need any of that. We don't need that bulky bit down the bottom. Now, we talked about mossing in lesson 3. Let me just show you what I mean. Okay, using the fine wire again, going in here and getting the tiniest little, that's a bit big for what we need for today, but it will do for what I need to show you. Now turn that over just a little bit, less than one of those cotton buds. Now, so that you've got a wee ball, I'd make it much smaller than that, but for today I need it to be that size so that you can actually see the size of that. Now you now need to have dry hands. Now when we were doing the daisy, we stuck the wire from the top down. It's exactly the same process here, and you just push right into the center of that little calyx of the flower there, and then push that wire through so that it comes out the end. Pull that all the way through and into almost to the base of the flower. Now when we spray that with water, I'm not going to do that now, but when I do, I'm going to make sure that I mist it so that that little cotton bud actually absorbs even more moisture, and that is going to mean that that little floret is going to last quite a long time. It should last the duration of the wedding. Right, drying hands. Now I've got this little stem here. So as I said, one on its own's boring, so I'm actually going to put 2 stems with that. So that needs to be wired and that needs to be wired. Getting your wire, taking that up through to there, bringing that down, and this time I am going to twist that around just because I want to make sure that that is going to be firm, but to have wired it on its own would have been fine anyway. Right, with this I could wire all really I should be wiring all of that, but I'm going to see if I can get away with it. Sometimes if you can actually see that you've got to be careful with it, they will be careful with it. Now wiring and wired, and then tape everything, and this time I'm going to see if I can get away without wiring that to just show you another technique. Now I've just gone into that and I do not like that bulky bit into there, so cut that off, and that little bit of wire, just squeeze that into there, and then getting your tape and twisting it around. I wish I had just 1 cent or a dime for all of the wiring that I've done in my life. Now clean that down. Right, with this one here, you're going to need to pull that out just a little bit. The reason I'm doing that is because I just know that that's quite delicate, so I don't want to be putting too much weight on it. So just binding that around there like so, and then pulling it out to bind it back onto itself, and make sure that that little edge there where the stem is onto the wire, the fat bit there, that there is completely covered, because you need that for some bulk. Okie dokie, then get rid of this. Clean hands. Okay, let's put the whole thing together. That can go to there, so see how I've got that going ahead, that going to there, and then if I want that into there, I can just put that into there like so, and then I can put a leaf behind it. But this is when you need to say to yourself, do I actually need that in there? Maybe not. So if you don't think that you need it, just take it out. And to me, visually, that is all that you need. Even though I've wired that and mossed it, I also know that I might not be able to trust that. So if I'm in doubt, leave it out. Cut your wires down and then tape that up like so. And we're now going to have a nice, neat little bag. So you don't need to have lots of flowers for men at all. Right, so there we go. And hopefully that doesn't break off. But if it does break off, it doesn't matter, because I've still got that little bit in there, so you can get away with it. So I will just take that off. Just, it's better to be safe than sorry. So there we have that, and this is the other one that I wanted to show you with. Look how fine that is as opposed to that there, how thick it is. Now also I did these yesterday, and that was a little bud that I actually mossed up. I know just by the feel and the texture of it that that's actually going to wilt. As I said, if in doubt, leave it out. So there we have buttonholes for now, but when I get into it, for every bouquet that we make, I will do 2 or 3 different types of buttonholes or corsages. Right, do you need a break? I think you do need a break. Go and get yourself a coffee, because when I come back, this technique of the buttonhole is going to go into a corsage, and it is just exactly the same as what we've done. Same method, same technique, except it's just taking it a little bit further, and then if we've got time, I'll show you how to do a quick garland for the hair. Right, have a break and have a coffee, and I'll see you in a moment. Oh, I so enjoyed that coffee. Okay, we've done the buttonholes. Now let's look at corsages. Corsages are so easy to make, and as I said, it's just an extension. So there is this Obsidian Orchid Buttonhole. That there is, hold on, I'll put it this way so you can see it. That there is the buttonhole, and all it is an extension of what we did in the buttonhole. Here we have, this was the Lisianthus, and to make the buttonhole, the corsage, It's just an extension. So from that to that, you just build onto it, and I'm about to now show you how to do that. Right, everything is all wired and ready to go. So let's just start with the Lisianthus. One Lisianthus goes to there, remembering that we're moving our way down. That just goes into there, that lovely transition. Say we want to use a Freesia, let's put the Freesia into there. So we're still stepping down, even though that's a little bit bigger than those, it sort of works itself out quite nicely, I believe, anyway. Now, do you want another Lisianthus? That Lisianthus can go into there. If you didn't want to do that, you might want to put in a little orchid. I think that I really like a corsage that's got more than one thing in it, like several flowers, even though that it looks okay, but it's a wee bit like, it's just orchids. So, you know, we're trying to bring the flowers of the bouquet into the corsages. And the other thing I like to do is I don't mix and match to dresses now. I always like the bride, all of the flowers to look the same. It's just a personal thing that I like to do, but you know, it's entirely over to you as to what you do or what your bride wants. Okay, so I've got the little bud there. I've stepped that in with the Freesias there, which gives a really lovely, lovely transition from that point all the way into there. Also, with having those little flowers so close together and tightly, sort of tightly compact, I just know that that's going to help to hold it together. And then I've got the little Oncidium down there. Now, I thought just because I could, I would bring another one down into there, and then holding everything together, a little bit of fern can go on top of that, and that's going to be the support. And I've got two leaves, so I'm just going to bring a leaf over to there, and then bring another leaf over and in to there, like so. So you've got that lovely shape. Very, very classic, very, very old-fashioned, but a really lovely technique to have in your toolbox. Then when I look over the back, everything is all layered. I've got the support structure there with the asparagus fern. I actually prefer asparagus fern to maidenhair fern because I know that it's going to hold. Also, it gives a lovely back there. You've got your little lovely leaf there, and that leaf there, to make it three-dimensional, comes from there through to there. Right, you don't need to twist anything. Cut off those stems. Get a bit of tape, and then just tape everything together. Oops, I didn't quite get that tight enough, but never mind. Bring that down to there like that. Tight. I know what's wrong. Got a bit wet on my hands. So remember, as I said in lesson 3, you need to make sure that your hands are perfectly dry. So that just goes, and then I'll just give that a wee twist back up there so that I know that that's bound and held tightly. Now, if you wanted to, you could put another orchid into there, and when I do things like that, I just take it down and into there. But as I said right at the beginning, oh, that does look quite nice, doesn't it? Oh no, we'll leave that into there. As I said at the beginning, remember, ask the question, what is that corsage going to be placed on? Is it going on to grandma who's 90, who's wearing satin or something silk? You don't want to muck up the line of the frock, and also you don't want something that's too oversized. And by that I mean, let's just, looking at these beautiful lilies here, look at the size of those and imagine that on somebody that was really small and frail. You don't want to oversize people. So with that there, when it comes to, and oh, the other thing is with wiring, I can get my fingers into there and I can bend and manipulate those to go to whichever way I want them to go. Now the other thing is, if people ask you now, how do you place it? It hasn't been designed to go there. It's actually been designed to go right up at the top, and I usually just bend that little handle around there and always put a wee note in to tell them. So that's actually going to go up there, which is far more flattering to the face than having something on the bosom. And the other thing to factor in is, what if Auntie Mary has got big breasts? You don't want something like that drawing attention to it, and it needs to go up there. The other thing is, I always place it as if I was dancing. So if you need to know whether it goes the left or the right, usually for a lady it goes on to the right, because when you're dancing you dance like this hip to hip usually, unless you're doing a tango. But even so, if the flowers are up out of the way, and the other thing is the main stem of your garment is where the strength of the garment is right up here. So placing it up there, it's really enhancing to the face. Now, so that's from buttonhole to corsage. Now, if you wanted to do perhaps a garland, now I'm just going to quickly show you this, and we'll have a wee break for a minute because I'm going to go on to garlands next lesson, because I think it's a really important skill that you need to learn. So just put all these to one side, have a wee bit of a break for a minute, and I'll be back and I'll quickly show you how it starts so that we can lead into it. What a big lesson this has been. I'm exhausted, and I think we're all exhausted and we need a bit of a break. Right, corsage or buttonhole, more flowers takes you into a corsage or a wrist spray or a flowers to go onto a handbag, but it also takes you into a garland for around the head. It could be a garland of flower, a collar of flowers. It could also be a garland or a circle of flowers around a wedding cake. Really quick and simple to do. So there's the beginning of it. Right, let me just show you. This is what I was talking about. Have a look at that. Now, where we've gone, where's that buttonhole? Where did that buttonhole go? For goodness sake, oh, here it is. So see how we started off, and I did the piece of asparagus fern, and then I put the leaf behind it, or the flower, whichever way. That is what you do to form the garland. But the leaf, and the other thing is that the leaves actually start to become the base structure and give it support. So next lesson, this is what we're going to be looking at doing. Oops, little flower fell out. But this is and the other thing is with learning how to do this basic method here for the garland. If you've got a bride that wants a trailing bouquet, this I've just put into a lady holder because I wanted to quickly do it. But if a bride wanted a trailing bouquet, it's just a matter of starting off and doing this simple process here where everything's all plaited in together, and then that would go into there. But if you wanted a double handle, you could just bring the two in like so. So that's what we're going to do in lesson 4. No, it'd be lesson 5. So thanks for watching. I hope I've been of assistance. Lots and lots of practice, everyone. And I look forward to seeing you in due course. Thanks for watching.